Did you know that unlike other major professional sports, boxing is not an association and does not have a labor union for boxers? Because labor unions in professional sports allow athletes to band together to protect their rights, health, and contracts, without one, boxers are left vulnerable to bad contracts and mismanagement. We'll discuss this and other interesting facts about the cutthroat business of boxing with writers Jason Nave and Adrian Clark on this episode of The Curious Professor. Hi everyone, I'm Dr. B. Welcome to the Curious Professor podcast, where I take listeners on a journey of discovery to explore the people, places, artifacts, and natural wonders that spark my curiosity. On this episode of the Curious Professor podcast, we'll explore the world of boxing with writers Jason Nave and Adrian Clark. But first, a trivia question. What is the earliest appearance of boxing in history? I'll have the answer for you at the end of this episode. I'm thrilled to have Jason Nave and Adrian Clark on the show today. Jason Nave is an award-winning writer, director, and producer based out of the Los Angeles area. He was born in Fort Sill, Oklahoma, where he grew up, as well as in Texas. Jason has bachelor's and master's degrees in mechanical engineering with a background in robotics, automation, and aerospace. While specializing in comedy, his writing spans across genres, including drama and horror. His films have screened at film festivals across the country and are available on a variety of online platforms. Jason and his wife, actress and producing partner Nancy Nave, have 3 sons. Adrian Clark is an American author from Dallas, Texas, with 5 books under his belt. He graduated from Texas A&M University, Corpus Christi in 2009 with a BA in Communications. In 2012, he founded AC Sports Management, LLC, which focused on athlete representation in professional basketball and boxing. Adrian has represented NBA veterans C.J. Miles and the late Andre Emmett. He also represented former world title challenger Willie Monroe Jr., Jarrell Big Baby Miller, and current unified welterweight champion Errol Spence Jr. As a result of his success, Adrian was named to Forbes magazine 30 Under 30 Sports list in 2016. This particular honor spotlights the up-and-coming game changers in sports and entertainment. Shortly after making the Forbes list, Adrian created the Protect Yourself at All Times initiative, which operates as an unofficial labor union in the sport of boxing. The purpose of this company is to educate and inform boxers on the nature of the boxing industry. In 2019, Adrian sold AC Sports Management, LLC to Dallas-based sports agency Ballingy Group for an undisclosed amount. Welcome to the show, Jason and Adrian. It's great to have you here.
Thank you, Karen. Great to be here.
Definitely great to be here. Thank you for having us.
Jason, your background is in mechanical engineering. What got you interested in screenwriting and filmmaking?
It's kind of weird. Yeah. I went to school for engineering, had engineering jobs. I kind of still have an engineering job. But, my wife actually got into acting before I got into writing. So she kind of introduced me to, the industry a little bit, behind the scenes. So, we just got to talking and I always kind of had this creative urge about me. So I just kind of threw myself into, reading scripts and it was just something that really, really sparked a fire in me. So I just started writing.
A natural question that came up when I was doing research, and I was wondering, with your background in robotics, automation, aerospace, science fiction would seem like a natural fit, but you've chosen to specialize in comedy. Why is that?
I would think that too, and on occasion, a little bit of technology creeps its way into the stuff I write. But I've always been more of a comedy guy. I like to just laugh and cut up and stuff like that. So that's what I gravitated toward mostly. I've branched out a little bit. The project I'm doing with Adrian is not a comedy. There's some, I think, funny elements in it because of the character. There's a character that's based on Adrian, and Adrian's a funny guy. So there is a little bit of that. But comedy's just always been my thing. And maybe it's trying to get away from the serious serious side of myself. I mean, that could be it.
So how did you and Adrian meet?
We met through a common friend, someone that I knew since high school. I was on the wrestling team with him. We just kind of became good friends. And I'm not sure about the other side. I guess Adrian can tell the other side, but he invited us, both of us parties together to dinner, and we just sat there at the table, had a good time, and I think we hit it off. It was kind of weird. It was the first time we met, and it felt like I knew Adrian kind of already after like 10 minutes talking to him. So it was kind of weird, but it's worked out, and now I consider Adrian a good friend of mine.
Yeah, and it's weird, like after I wrote the book and I realized that it could possibly be something that could be seen like on camera with a series or whatever, like Jason was the first person that I thought of. I'm pretty sure like the phone call to him was like really weird because like it just came from nowhere and I probably was rambling a lot. But when I thought about, okay, someone writing like a script or like when I learned to be a pilot, I was like, I think Jason is probably the person I should talk to. And I made the call, and I'm pretty sure I get on his nerves at times and I'm probably a little random or whatever, but he's made this process for me really, really easy, man. So I'm glad that we met.
And tell us about your project, Dark Horse.
So Dark Horse is my memoirs as a boxing manager. So it tells the stories that I don't normally tell as far as like me doing interviews about boxing management or my clients. It really gives you a backstory of how a lot of times I was either broke or in bad situations with women or just doing random wild things that a 20-year-old that's in sports and entertainment may do. It's just giving you a strong backstory. And honestly, even though it's my story, I may be a little biased, but man, going from graduating college at 23 and then becoming a boxing manager maybe like 6 or 7 months after graduating college and having to really grow up really, really quickly in sports and entertainment, and to do that without having a mentor or someone to like hold my hand through it. And it's a really interesting story to make it to where I got to with doing pay-per-view shows and opening up the Mayweather-Maidana rematch and meeting the people that I've met. It's been a really interesting journey for a guy that honestly came from nowhere, hence the term Dark Horse. I wasn't projected to win. I don't think I was on anybody's radar to get to where I'm at, and here we are. So it's an interesting book, but I think it'll be an even more interesting series on television.
And Adrian, you started out as a boxer, and you've stated that you used to think that you chose boxing, but looking back at your career, you discovered that boxing chose you. Tell us more about that.
So I've been I have one picture from my college graduation, and it's not really clear. And it makes me think like 2009 was not that long ago. And it's at a time to where I thought people had updated cameras or state-of-the-art cameras, but I can't find a good picture of me at graduation. But I walked the stage with, and I have a kind of like a replica. I had Everlast gloves like wrapped around like my neck. So I fought amateur in college, but like boxing was not a huge part of my upbringing. But boxing had took me through so much in 2 years that I felt that, you know what, I had a fight. Like this was my fight. College was a fight. Amateur boxing was a fight for me. And like I won. So I'm going to show how I won with wearing these boxing gloves around my neck, walking the stage. And it was something that was like random. I randomly found these gloves, which I don't know what I did with them to this day. But it was at that time, man. It was really at that time where the sport had selected me. And honestly, I had no clue that I was going to be a boxing manager. I didn't think I was going to be in boxing at all. I thought I was going to be the next best NBA sports agent, but I think those gloves around my neck and the energy that I put out, it came back, and like boxing is now completely my life. There's literally nothing I can do that people won't tie into or bring in boxing. So it definitely chose me.
You've said that you kicked down doors and broke windows to get into the sports management business, and you eventually ended up on the Forbes 30 Under 30 in sports. Tell us about your rise in the profession.
Honestly, I guess the term is like ignorance is bliss. Honestly, I didn't know what I was doing. I just knew what I wanted. You know what I'm saying? And I didn't let anything like stop me from like moving forward. Even when I didn't have any money, I kept moving. Like the Forbes list, like the 30 under 30. That was January 4th, 2016. Like I probably only had maybe like $20 something in my bank account when they made that announcement. But I knew when I saw that magazine, in the airport. I think it was in 2015. I knew I wanted to be in that magazine. I knew I wanted to be on the list. I just didn't know how I was going to do it. But I bought the magazine and I took it home with me and I left it in my bathroom. And I saw it every day. Even if I didn't look at it, I still saw it. It was a seed that was planted. And like, that's pretty much like me in a nutshell. When I think of something, like I'm thinking, okay, I got to execute and get this done. I'm not thinking about, oh, well, I don't have this amount of money or I don't have this connection. I'm going to get it done one way or another. And it started in my 20s, man. And here I am now at 34, still having the same mindset of like, yo, I'm just going to get it done. 35. I just turned 35. I'm going to get it done. I don't know how. I don't care how much money I have or don't have, or who I do or do not know. I'm going to get it done if I can think of it. And that's just me.
You've mentioned that you saw the music business with bad contracts and mismanagement. You saw that with what that could do to artists, and then you saw a similar thing happen in boxing. Tell us about those parallels and how that inspired you to want to work with professional boxers.
Yeah, and I say it all the time, and I think because people don't actually go through it, they hear the example, but they don't understand it. But like Jason is in robotics. So I imagine Jason makes a nice amount of money. But if Jason had me or someone else as his manager, and that manager was taking 33% of his money, I'm pretty sure Jason would have a problem with that. And if he had a trainer, someone that was kind of like brushing up his skill and making sure that he was on point in discipline or whatever it may be, if that individual was taking 10% of his money, that now becomes essentially 43%, almost half of his money before taxes. Like if anyone hears those numbers, even if it's people working for you, if one individual is taking 33% of your money, which most times that's the case in boxing, and then your trainer, someone that's with you every day, is taking a hard percentage of 10, and there's no regulation that states that it has to be this way. At least in the NBA and other like sanctioned sports, they're sanctioning bodies that state, okay, your agent is paid 4%, a max of 4%. It can't go anything above that, and it can't go anything below 1%. That's a regulation. That's something that's stated through the Players Association. But in boxing, there's no Fighters Association. There is no association. So why continue paying these people this hard percentage? And after taxes are paid, it leaves you with nothing. And hearing that, I think if anyone hears that, if you don't feel some type of way that these young kids are being taken advantage of financially and contractually, and it's been this way for the past probably 50, 60 years, if that doesn't bother you, man, then I question what's wrong with you, essentially. But I saw that going on, and I knew that I had to be the change or to bring the change, and that's what I'm doing.
And you've said that you've learned something valuable from each of the fighters that you've worked with. What were some of the most valuable things that you've learned?
The one thing is kind of funny, but don't sleep with anybody's family member if you're trying to like recruit them or like represent them. It just doesn't go well if you like slept with their sister or their aunt or something like that. That's not a direction you should go.
Kind of a good life lesson in general, I think.
I'm sorry, Jason. That's the one thing I've learned. Like, just don't cross the lines of family members. But then also, like, be a man of your word. If you say that you're going to do it, or if you know that you can do it, verbalize that and move forward. But if you can't do it, like I think the saying is, let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. You can get it done, then say you can get it done and get it done. But if you can't get it done, and you know when you've kind of explored the horizon that you're not going to be able to get it done, or you don't have an inside track when you're dealing with someone else's like livelihood. If I'm betting on me, then cool. Even if I can't see that I can do it, I'm going to finesse some things. But when you're dealing with someone else's livelihood, when representing a professional fighter, they're depending on you to bring them opportunities and create things for them. So let your yes be your yes and your no be your no. And then the last thing that I learned from like representing fighters is that these guys' careers are going to come to an end, and they're still going to need you. They're going to need you even more when it's over with than they need you when it's going on, because something special, something that they've done for 20 years probably has been taken away from them, and they're not going to be able to do that anymore. And they're going to need mental help. They're going to need your guidance still, even though you're not working for them from a fight standpoint. So once once you sign up to represent a fighter, you're essentially signing up to represent him for life. It's not just a one-time thing. You're going to be with this individual for a very long time. So those are the 3 things I learned.
Let's go back to the Dark Horse project. What was the process like for the 2 of you working on the TV pilot?
Jason, go ahead. Go ahead.
Well, so, Adrian talked about when he first called me and we talked about the project itself. And so, he wasn't sure what it should be, but he knew that it could be something. So I got the book and I read it. And like Adrian said, it's got a bunch of stuff in there that talks about the experiences in his life. And it gives you a lot of insight into the boxing world and particularly being a manager in the boxing world. So I found that really interesting. So when I read that, I thought this feels like such an interesting world to explore. We've seen boxing movies, not so much boxing shows, but then you've seen, kind of gritty shows too. When you talk about this project, we like to say it's a cross between like Rocky and the show Power or Rocky and the show Empire. It melds those things together because it talks about the business side and, all victories and defeats and personal consequences and that sort of thing. So that's where I saw it when I read the book. And so we talked about that. Adrian jumped on board. He said, yeah, I think that's the right way too. And then, I just kind of wrote a pilot based on what I knew of him without having any conversations. He had a lot of other projects going on. So I just I'm just going to write something to show Adrian what this could look like. So I did that and sent it to him and he liked it. And then we talked a little bit more and he said, well, let's try to make this, let me give you some more information. So he sends me all this other information about, here's me and my life and the people in my life. And then here's my, my first client and the people in his life. So I took that information and said, okay, well, let me kind of start from scratch here. Wrote another one with that. And then between the 2 of us, we tweaked a couple things here and there. And we ended up with something that we were both really happy with. And then we kind of plotted out the seasons from there. So we've got some general ideas of what what does season 1, 2, 3 look like? So we can pitch that, to producers.
I'm just the story, to be honest with you, Dr. Karen. And I'm not just saying that because he's on here. Like Jason, if it weren't for Jason, like this, it would be nothing, to be real with you. But he's like the voice of reason for me because like even now we have an agent essentially that's like shopping the project and I'm a no guy. Like if I hear something before I hear it all the way through, I'm like, oh no, I'm not gonna do that, or hell no, I'm not doing it. But I was so like extra the other day when they sent us a contract and I'm like, I'm not signing it. I don't care what anyone says, I'm not signing it. So I called Jason like, yo, I had to call you, man, because they're trying to get me to sign this agreement, man. I'm not signing this stuff. And I sent it to Jason. He's like, okay, well, I just want you to think about some things. On the first page, it says X, Y, and Z. And by the time he got to like talking about the third page, I'm like, okay, he's right. You know what? They don't need to talk to me anymore. Everyone just talk to Jason because he knows what to do, what not to do, how to go about this process. Like I really don't. I have the story, but from the pilot to the different angles, Jason has helped out so much. He's even helped out with me it's my story, but it's not exactly about me. So he's helped me remove myself from the project essentially to understand like, look, the character's name is Adrian, but this is a Hollywood story. Essentially, we're adding different things and it's still your story, but it's not gonna be exactly how you lived it. And that was a struggle for me. He'll tell you, like, I would read things and I'm like, no, it didn't happen that way. I don't want it to look like this. And he's like, understand, this is you, but it's not you. So he's done an amazing job just helping me understand, because I'm probably one of the most difficult people to work with, but he's done a good job, man. So I'm glad that I have Jason on my side.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Adrian. And, I think we make a pretty good team together because I think we complement each other pretty well in terms of the things that I do well and things that he does well. I think we make a pretty good team there. So, I'm happy to be working with Adrian here too.
So you said that you have an agent who's shopping it. What's the status right now? Can we expect to see this on TV anytime soon, or where are you at in the process of getting it made?
It's very early. So, we've had some preliminary conversations and they're just putting some feelers out, right? So they have a few connections here and there. So, we don't know anything just yet. We think the concept and the project has so much promise. We put a lot of work into, not just the pilot script, but the whole pitch deck that explains the project as a whole and fleshing out the season details and stuff like that. So, we're ready to sit down and talk with whoever wants to talk about it. We're ready to go, and we're just waiting for that call.
That's exciting.
Yeah, I'm excited. I don't don't know what's going to happen, but I usually go into things with like having like no expectations. But, you know, with our relationships and the people that Jason and I know, something is going to happen. We just don't know when. I think I can really stand on that. Like we know that something's going to happen with the project. It's just we really can't pinpoint when or who. And I think that's what really makes it exciting.
So what's one question you wish someone would ask you about your work that no one has asked you yet? I'll start with Jason.
Oh, wow. Someone I wish. Well, I mean, it would be nice to for somebody to say, let me read your work. What do you got? That's the hardest thing in Hollywood, right? Is getting somebody to read it. You know, I feel like, you know, the stories I've got and, you know, the comedy I've got or the drama I've got has got an audience. I feel like it's got a market. And that's just the hardest thing, is to get somebody to actually read it. And you know, once you get somebody to read it, to make that connection, because not every person who reads it is going to make that connection. You know, I think a lot of people don't understand how this industry works, right? It's incredibly hard to knock that door down, you know, and get somebody interested. Even if you've got the greatest project, it's hard. That's why, you know, Adrian and I come across an opportunity like this where we got somebody to actually look at it and help us pitch it. I mean, it's huge, you know, and Adrian's not part of the business. I try to tell him what a big deal this is. I think he believes me, but it's such a big deal. You know, I've been writing for over 10 years, right? And it's so incredibly hard to get somebody hooked. And so this has happened relatively quickly. Sometimes you just meet people. So, you know, people are brought into your life and they're there for a reason, and they end up helping you out. And I don't know that that's going to happen. I mean, I feel like to some degree that's happened with me and Adrian, but, you know, getting that step actually into industry is just the hardest thing.
And Adrian, what's one question you wish someone would ask you about your work that no one has asked you yet?
To be honest, like, and really hear me on this, for someone to read one of my books or see one of my projects on YouTube or whatever, I wish someone would really just say, yo, this is great. Like, what can I do to help you? What can I do to take this to the next level for you? Can I send this to whoever? That would be great. I feel like, you know, I'm on I've penned 5 books now, and I've self-published all of my books, and I've sat down with a few publishers, but never anything concrete. And even just kind of echoing what Jason was just speaking on, meeting Victoria and Andy, the individuals that are essentially like representing us for Dark Horse, like that wasn't a situation to where they were asking me, you know, how can we help you? They were actually contacting me about something else that they wanted me to do a favor for them. Like, and they asked me what else I was doing, and I told them about it, and they were like, send it over, we want to read it. And then it became, hey, like we can help you with this, but I would love for someone to read one of these books or see whatever projects and be like, hey, how can I help you get this to the next level? That's probably the one question I would want to hear.
So I'm going to ask you very quickly, off the top of your head, what's your favorite boxing movie and why?
The Price of Glory. And it's a low budget movie, essentially, but has some good actors in it. But the name of it, The Price of Glory, because there is a price that you pay. Like, you want the money, or you want the recognition, or the fame, the girls, all of that. There's a price that comes with it. It can be something that's monetized. It can be you losing a lot of money. It could be you losing time. It could be you losing friends. It could be you losing your life. But there's a price that comes with glory, and that movie was just amazing, man. Three brothers. One of them ended up getting killed. Another one ended up being world champion. Another one ended up strung out on drugs. And the father, like, pretty much broke. It's a great movie. The Price of Glory is something that you should watch if you haven't heard of it.
And Jason?
Well, I think back to my formative years, and I guess I got to go with Rocky IV for me. that was that time in your life, you know, when you're growing up. I was a teenager, I guess, and it was the whole, you know, good versus evil, USA versus Russia. And, you know, I look back now and I see parts of it, and it's like so cheesy, but, you know, at that age and that moment, you know, really means something to you. You know, it had all the right music, it had all the right everything. You know, you got to kind of ignore the fight scenes because they're a little over the top nutty, but, you know, that's the one that sticks out most to me. And that's probably just because of the time in my life. life that I saw it.
Yeah, it's interesting to go back and watch movies that impacted you when you were young and to look at them with the eyes of a mature person.
Very much so.
So, Jason, where can listeners find out more about you and your work?
Well, they can take a pitch meeting with me and Adrian, I guess. That would be one start. But I mean, beyond that, I've got an IMDb page. You can look me up there, or go to LinkedIn, send me a message. I'm terrible at keeping up with my LinkedIn page. I probably haven't touched it in, 8 years or something, but that's a good way to send me a message anyway.
Okay. And Adrian, how can listeners find out more about you and your work?
And I'm a little more active on social media than Jason. So on Facebook, I'm Adrian Clark. I'm not at my limit of friend requests yet, so you can request me on there. On Instagram, I'm AC_Clark. Very active on Instagram, and I'll respond to DMs or whatever, as long as it's sensible, nothing outrageous. Twitter, the Adrian Clark. And of course, I have books for sale on Amazon and Barnes & Noble. And then I created an initiative called Protect Yourself at All Times. That the website is PYAAT.org, PYAAT.org, and it breaks down the business of boxing and what I've done for the past 4 or 5 years and how you can help protect yourself outside the ring. And that also has an Instagram page, which is PYAAT __, I think.
And you're on YouTube.
I'm on YouTube. The Protect Yourself at All Times YouTube page has all of my content dating back to 2016. You can look at all the videos, and trust me, it's a crash course for the business of boxing. So about the time you get done watching all of the videos on YouTube with Protect Yourself at All Times, you are ready for the sport of boxing as a professional. So I encourage all fighters or parents of fighters, most importantly, if your kid is in the ring taking punches or whatever, and they want to do it for a living, then you definitely need to be keen on what Protect Yourself at All Times does and what it can do for your son or your daughter.
Yeah, I'll say one more thing about, some of my projects. If you go to YouTube and search, or Facebook, either one, and search for Chew Angry Productions, just like it sounds, Chew Angry. We got a few things out there that we've done, a little smaller projects. A few things also on Amazon Prime. If you just search my name, you'll find a couple projects on there. So it's a few things if you want to check them out.
It was great to have you on the show, Jason and Adrian. Thank you so much for taking time to be a guest on the Curious Professor podcast.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having us.
And now for the answer to this episode's trivia question. What is the earliest appearance of boxing in history? The earliest appearance of boxing in history comes from Sumerian artifacts found in present-day Iraq. The depiction of two men facing each other with arms bent and fists clenched originated in 3000 BCE. We'll end the show with something punny. What's a boxer's favorite part of a joke? The punchline. Thank you for joining me for this episode of the Curious Professor podcast. If there's a person, place, artifact, or natural wonder that has sparked your curiosity and you'd like for me to feature it on the show, please let me know. My website is thecuriousprofessorpodcast.com. If you enjoyed the show, be sure to subscribe to the Curious Professor podcast wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you'd like to become part of my community of curiosity seekers, be sure to visit my website, thecuriousprofessorpodcast.com, and join Dr. B's Hive. Until next time, always be learning and be curious with Dr. B.